Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Welcome to Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Ray Samich, and I'd like to introduce all of you to my longtime radio colleague and co-host of our show, and much more importantly, my dear spiritual brother, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Oh, wonderful, Ray. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you, and excited to be with you again and surrounded here as I look at my computer screen by so many of our guests that assemble from all across the country and literally around the world that are joining us on our Zoom call. So we'll tell you more about how you can be part of that a little bit later in the show. Ratanjit, I came across an article this week that really stimulated me to suggest this topic about should we be antidepressants? And this article just staggered me in terms of some of the statistics that have happened over the last few years. So I'm going to announce some of those so that other people hear what I have read. And that is that there has been such a large increase in the number of people that are now taking antidepressants. And this really surged. A lot of it is blamed on COVID, but it really started in 2016. So it started even 3 or 4 years before COVID. But from the period of 2016 to 2022, about 35% increase in the number of prescriptions and overall men and women for antidepressants. From 2020 to 2022, that was 64% increase in the number of people prescribed for taking antidepressants. The really scary number to me was young women aged 12 to 17 for that same period of time increased 130% in the number of women now taking antidepressants, young women aged 12 to 17.
Wow.
Flipping one more number to share. Overall, all people over 60, 19% of them take antidepressants. Women over 60, it's 25%. 25%, 1 out of every 4 women age 60 and over is taking antidepressant medication. I read those numbers. I read the article, which, by the way, was from the American Academy of Pediatrics, published this February of 2024. So this is not from, some news source that is tainting the numbers. This is right from an academic study. I read those, and a couple of the thoughts hit me. Number one, are we oversubscribing it? Are doctors very quick to prescribe that right now without maybe doing due diligence on it? But then the other thought is why do we need it? Why are there so many people today, so many more people today than ever before that are asking for it or thinking that they need it? So I share those numbers with you and I ask you, what do you think? I mean, this is worthy of discussion. This is a serious problem.
I want to share a personal story. And we have so many doctors as friends.
Mm-hmm.
They come and visit, and so when they come, and they're all talking about more or less gossip kind of thing. This happened, that I did this, and I went to this holiday season, and this and that. So I listen quietly and I don't really too much participate in that. I'm there to serve them tea and coffee and all those other things. And I do my part, but my participation is minimal. So when they go home and they call my wife and they say, I want you to, um, I hate to inform you, but I think Ratanjit is depressed. And
There's
um,
one person in the world who's not depressed, it's you.
so one thing, and also when you are born in a doctor's family, in a way you are cursed. The smallest ailment, and they ask you to pop a pill.
Yeah.
It's like if you only know how to hammer a nail and you only have a hammer, you're going to hammer everything. So that is one of the things which is happening in our society, that everything is overprescribed. And I don't want to also uh, underestimate the the pressure on doctors is to constantly prescribe drugs, because this is pharmaceuticals actually ends up making more money by selling. So that is one part of it. And the second part is that there is a different way human beings are growing. As a child, if you remember, I am in my 80s, and at that time, none of this technology was there. And I was basically uh, spend my childhood playing with nature, playing with things, and constantly going out and getting dirty and all that. And today's children basically are spend 80-90% of their time with the cell phone, for the with the
Called
computer
screen time.
screen
Screen
time.
time.
And
Computers, phones, iPads, television. Yeah.
yeah, so that itself, so until you have interaction with the human being, you are one of the food which you are human being, as we need, is is affection and love. Somebody cares, somebody notices. And and computer doesn't notice you. Computer doesn't tell you that you're better or good. So you're inundated with information, or you're playing games, which is just nothing to do with. So if you eat food which has no nutrition value but looks like food and tastes like food and smells like food, and you keep on eating, your body is still deprived of the natural nutrients which its body is surviving on. So you are going to be starved, you are going to be ill, you are going to be not perfect. So that is what is happening in our society, right?
You know, there are the two sides that you just mentioned. And one is from the doctor's perspective and that whole medical industry. And I don't want to spend too much time on that part of it. I really want to take the second part for this show today. But I don't want to leave this just with what you said, because I know you have the highest respect for doctors. You, as you said, many of them are your friends. Many doctors around the world are just doing amazing things, and our levels of medical technology have never been higher. We're able to keep people living longer and healthier, higher quality of lives than ever before. So we're not criticizing or in any way um, saying that doctors aren't phenomenal and medicine isn't phenomenal. But the fact is that the pharmaceutical industry has an amazing hold on medicine and on healthcare. And so the statistics bear that out. That's not just two people talking here. That is the fact that that is one of the largest and most powerful corporation groups in the world, industries in the world. And they're very quick to prescribe any type of medication that can be prescribed. And we are also, you mentioned technology, we're changing a lot to be what they call telehealth, over the phone, over the computer screen. And so if I spend 20 minutes talking with you, and if you're very low key and if you're very, you look like you're depressed, or if you're very anxious and you're jittery and you're nervous, you know, in 20 minutes, I might say, hey, you're like everybody else, especially if you're a young girl now, 12 to 17, and I'm prescribing that to everybody else. I might as well prescribe it to you too and see if it helps. So it is interesting how, I mean, that whole thing is happening, and you just wonder how many of those people that are prescribed those drugs really need them. It really is legit, or it is just an easy go-to in that field. And the fact that, some people would call Dolly, your wife, and say, I think Ratanjit is depressed, is almost hysterical. I mean, anybody who would know you and the vitality and vivaciousness that you bring to life every minute would never call you depressed. So the absurdity of that is so notable that it kind of bears out the fact that, you know, they're real quick to judge sometimes that way. But let's not talk about that topic anymore. Let's go to the second part of it. Why we are depressed, or why we think we are, why we are anxious, or why we think we are. I think that's what I really want to talk about today, because that's the way we hopefully can help some people. Maybe there's some people listening right now that say, hey, you guys are crazy. I really do need my medication. I really am depressed. I really do have anxiety. And so I don't know what I would do without my prescription every day. Do you think there's legitimate reasons why people are feeling more depressed today than ever? And you talked about the screen time, but I think it's more than that.
Now let's look at depression, which is you are anxious, you are stressed, and you feel lonely. All these things eventually lead to depression.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, when your thinking process is part in the human body mode, in what we have talked here, you are thinking of your you're controlled by your human body, which is all interested in what is good for me. So if you are parked in that paradigm, what is good for me, you are always looking for situation which is making a difference to you. And in knowingly, internally, Ray, when supposing you are in a crowd and you are a very selfish person, you're always thinking about me, 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 me. But suddenly this in the crowd, this older person, which is there and somehow alone, and he falls down, and your instinct unknowingly forces you to help him, to lift him, to take him to another place. So suddenly, your entire day that feeling that you help somebody is going to make your personal self-worth a little bit higher. You will have unknowingly little bit uh, happiness in yourself, in spite of the fact you don't involve in any. Now, you're not getting anybody to give you trophies or medal or any certificate of helping this person, but internally somehow you feel a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically, whenever we are in the oneness mode, that is, we see others as part of the divine force, and we have a desire to help them, desire to work with them, desire to do something for them. So it basically gives you moral boost, and your depression or that particular moment, your all that is set aside. And secondly, that the opposite thing to depression and your anxiety and your loneliness is the mindset of gratefulness. Now, normally people think, how can I be grateful? My life is stinks. I don't have proper food and I have not this and not that. And what can I be grateful for? So until you understand that real gratefulness happens unconditionally, and gratefulness has to be connected to the very enlivening force which is still present in this human body. You are still alive. You can still breathe. You can still see. You can still smell. You can still taste. And so those things we take for granted. And once we are grateful for any of these things, and you are grateful, in the grateful mode, you simply cannot be depressed. You simply cannot be stressed. You simply cannot be anxious. Grateful condition gives you amazing capacity to heal yourself. And it removes your depression, anxiety, and it enhances your immune system. As a result, your body is able to heal yourself. So this is something which we are not told to practice. We are never given this understanding of to be grateful, right?
I know that this isn't an easy topic. This is very complicated, and there's a lot of factors. I think what you said earlier about, a lot of screen time and kids are alone a lot more and they're not interacting. I think that's true. I think the fact that we don't go out and experience the world like we used to do, and I shared before we went on the air that I remembered as a young kid in the summertime, once school was out, 9 o'clock you were out of the house. You had breakfast, you're out of the house, and there's days that we didn't come back until dark. And and that was just the way of life. And I know the world's changed. I know that nowadays we have to keep track of our kids every minute because of the crazy things that happen in the world, and we don't let them go out for 12 hours at a time. So I know that everything has changed. But the last thing you said, is that the biggest change of all? Is the biggest change of all that nobody really is grateful anymore? That that feeling of gratefulness that allows us to have that special glow in our heart that keeps away the depression, that keeps away the loneliness, that keeps away the anxiety and the fear. Could that be one of the biggest things that we just don't appreciate life anymore? We don't appreciate the fact that, every day is a gift. I wonder which of these factors is the most important in this analysis.
Yeah, true. That's basically the foundation of our lives should be understanding this unconditioned gratefulness. And so all our life should be based on that. Once you are unconditionally grateful, you have much higher productivity, you have much higher creativity, you are at the top of yourself once you are grateful. And this is not taught to us. This is not systematically preached to us. So when you go for therapy, this is not part of the therapy.
We used to, when we talk about what it was like to be a kid, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, then there was a certain joy that we woke up to every day. I mean, whether we had, and there's so many things that have changed. I mean, at that time, most kids were growing up in a family. Most kids were growing up with us two parents and with brothers and sisters. And today, that's not the case. Many of them are single households. Many of them are single children, only children. Many of them, I mean, we used to be in what we would call safe neighborhoods. I mean, we could go outside. The doors were left unlocked, and we would go out all day and not worry about our safety. Kids never thought about going someplace and that there could be a terrorist, or it could be some crazy person with a gun or a knife or something that's going to attack us. That just wasn't even in our comprehension. And today it's a reality. Crazy things are happening in schools and homes and neighborhoods. Could those negative aspects, those changes, subtly, could that be making us ungrateful? We don't wake up with that joy because we know we don't have the so-called perfect life that we kind of thought we did have when we were kids. We all had problems. I'm not saying there was perfection, but there seemed to be so much more to be grateful for years ago than maybe the kids have today.
Yeah, there is another factor which is very important. Of course, today's life is changed and all that. So supposing a kid who is working on the computer and alone, so all yourself, my niece who lives in California, Tanya, you know her, and they are coming here. Their kids, twins, they come here twice a year, and when they are here, when I ask them to do this, these kids are very smart on computer and these kind of things. Whenever I ask them for help to do something for me, I make their day. They feel so much. Suddenly, a person, when you help somebody, when you do something for somebody, knowingly or unknowingly, you enhance your own self-worth. You feel better about yourself, and your happiness comes in. And that is one thing which is missing. We have not engaged people or youngster or older people or anybody. You look at when somebody retires, good health, retires, and they decide, okay, I'm going to see the world, I'm going to just be happy, I'm going to spend more time. So suddenly after 3, 4, 5 months, that is become boring. And until they engage in something which adds value, their lifespan is reduced. Many of them end up dying in 2, 3 years So it is very important to understand the gift of life is granted to us when we pay the dues. That is to add value using this life, this all these tools we have in this human body is there to add value, to work. And this is what gives you higher self-worth. And this will give you a reason to live. This gives you happiness. Ray, I think you should take a break.
We are going to take a break. I wanted to start by talking about the problem and maybe why it exists and how it exists. But your last few words there is where we're going to go when we come back. How do we solve it? How do we help others around us or help ourselves to overcome the state of depression, anxiety? What can we do? And starting with gratefulness, fantastic. But let's go beyond that. This is Stress Free Living. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, we have 90 seconds. If anybody would like to shout out a question or a comment, we welcome that. And I'll ask Ratanjit when we come back.
I just want to mention that knowing Bhai Saab for more than 40 years, if he's not talking to you, that means you're not saying anything interesting. But I think the thing about helping someone, I think that I see depression caused by A, loneliness, and B, disempowerment. And to be able to help someone is very empowering. And that's why I think we feel better that we made a difference. I think that's an innate need for everyone.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a quick thought? Open your mic and ask a question or.
Good morning. Great to be here with you guys. Empowerment, when you say that, it resonates with me. I feel very sad. The neighborhood where a lot of my family members still live, the Lee Harvard area in Cleveland, 20 young people have died this year. And as much as I try to make a difference with my family and the people in the community, they're burying young people at an alarming rate. And that makes me feel very sad.
Okay, we will definitely touch on that empowerment. Thank you. Few seconds left, if anybody. I'm getting your chats. I like that last one. We will continue to look at those. All right, well, I guess we're coming back. Anybody else have one last quick thought? Nope, we're coming back. Too late, sorry. We are back on Stress Free Living with Ratanjit and Ray, yours truly, Ray Samich, interacting as we do on our breaks with our Zoom guests. And we have a number of them today. We really appreciate them taking the time to be with us. If you would like to be part of our Zoom audience where you can interact with us and ask your questions and share your comments, especially at the end of the show when we kind of open it up and just have a free forum, then you can go out to our YouTube channel, Stress Free Living Radio on YouTube. You'll find over 100 shows there that have been recorded and able for you to listen to or watch at your leisure. But also on there, you will find our Zoom link so that you can join us live for our show every Saturday morning. Ratanjit, one of the big feedback issues that we have gotten back from our Zoom guests here in this last break was the idea that people feel disempowered, that they feel like they don't have the ability to change maybe where they're at, change their own life, or do something meaningful for others in their life. And that's such a big topic because you have to wonder, why do they feel that way? What has happened to them to cause them to have that disempowerment? But from today's show's perspective, how can they overcome it? How can they do something to feel empowered, which therefore would eliminate that terrible low point of their life that causes them to be depressed? So what do you think about that? Why do we feel like we don't have power?
So empowerment's other side to look at it is basically self-worth, what we talked about. Self-worth gives you empowerment. So self-worth is basically what your inner conscience think about you, what you really think about you. And it always comes from making a difference to others, adding value to others. Whenever you feel that you cannot do anything. So this human mind is a amazing thing which is gifted to us. It's very creative, but you have to have a proper catalyst to activate in the right direction. So if you're feeding your mind, boy, this situation is hopeless, I cannot do anything. So this mind is going to tell you 10 reasons that you cannot do anything. But at the same time, if you feed the mind, I have to do something to make a difference. Eventually, mind is going to confront it, but if you consistently feed this, you have to give me a way to, eventually mind is going to start working, and these are the ways you can help. So it is basically what you instruct your mind instead of you're becoming a product of what mind thinks, or the mind can become a servant of what you want this mind to do creatively. So it is very important that once you take care of your mind and make a difference, you know what happened to Mahatma Gandhi when he was confronted with this? He went to India, which was under British Empire, to fight the British Empire without any weapons. He did not have any weapons. All he had is a strong will and desire. You know the history.
Yeah.
And this is all because of the thinking and desire to make a difference.
Let's get real for a moment to the fact that 50% of the world goes to bed hungry every night. Actually, more than that. Okay. That there's so many people that are growing up in neighborhoods, in environments that are ravaged by drugs and violence and infestation by rodents and disease and everything else that's surrounding them. I mean, the reality is, and poverty, let's certainly not forget poverty in there. There's just people that are in environments that are hopeless or appear hopeless, at least in the moment. And so we're saying, just be grateful and just think positive and think about how you can help others. And they're afraid of getting a shot through their window from a drive-by shooter, or their brother being overdosing on drugs, or any of the other issues that are so relevant in these environments, or just pure poverty. Again, parts of the world that just don't have enough food for them to eat a good meal every day. How do those people get empowered? What can drive them to the point of saying it's going to get better?
I remember, I don't know whether you remember a story once I mentioned to you. It's worth repeating that. There was a very successful businessman in US, and he has only one daughter. And this daughter wanted to work for Peace Corps. And the Peace Corps mission sent her to Africa in this remote area, which is more confronted by these basically
The radical groups and things like
radical
that, right?
people who
Yeah.
were acquiring and killing and this and that. And somehow or other, this girl was caught in that, and she was murdered. Now, this man, whose only daughter was murdered, who was very powerful and money and everything. So instead of taking revenge and finding who killed her and punishing that person, she said, so for somebody to go to the extent to kill a daughter who is there to help has to be very sick. Somehow or other, this has to be changed. The mindset has to be changed. So he went there and he found that that place was basically hopeless. There were no employments, there were no schools. There were basically, these gangs basically were dominant. They were looting and killing people. That was the only way to survive. And so he finally invested his own money, started many businesses, created employment, created schools, and this youngster who killed this daughter eventually confronted this person. He said, "Why are you doing this? I killed your daughter. Why aren't you punishing me?" So eventually he helped those people. Of course, one can argue that everybody cannot do that. This person had the money, he was very successful, but people who are very successful, they are basically parked in the human body mode of collecting more money, greed, and power. Somehow or other, that is defect of our upbringing. And initially, when a person's psyche, the whole core character is formed before the age of 6. And what we are teaching our children is, who are you? What is your race? What is your color? Be something, be successful, score A's in your class and be first. We are segregating them. We are not teaching them who they really are. They are not this human body. They are the divine force which exists in every other person. Their purpose of life is not to just gather these worldly possessions and trophies and medals, but to nurture this divine force which is present in them and serve this divine force which exists around you and within you. And eventually you will be successful. You will make tremendous amount of money and everything because you are helping. You are making a difference through the product or the technology or ideas which are basically helping. So the mindset of our society will not change until we produce the true human beings. Instead of producing the same human beings which is focused on what is in it for me all their life and segregating themselves into what is I'm separate than you are, and I'm better than you are. And as a consequence, we are going to end up as a highly depressed and segregated society. One of our guests mentioned that loneliness is one of the main reasons of our segregation, which is true. The loneliness does not come from absence of loved one around you. Loneliness comes from absence of love within you. If you have loving, caring demeanor in you. You're going in public and you are looking in others' eyes and smiling and making your presence pleasant and helping. You're constantly saying, it's nice to help and nice to be, but you don't have enough food to have. But this condition of riches and poor exists because of the greed and ego and what is in it for me. So until we cure that thing from the fundamental, it will not cure the society. Right?
Again, Ratanjit, this is such a complicated topic, and it's different for everybody. The empowerment that I feel at my age
Really,
and with
it's
my
not
lifestyle.
complicated. It's not at all complicated. You can see from worldly point of view, it is complicated because we do not understand the purpose of our life. We do not understand who we are. So once that those things are understood, this is not complicated at all.
Well, this is how I mean it, and tell me if you disagree. Okay, I see exactly what you're saying. From my perspective, it matches perfectly with where I'm at in my life. But again, I go back to that youngster, that 15-year-old kid that is in an environment of poverty and drugs and violence. Okay. How do they function in that in any way feeling empowered, feeling like they can take on the world, feeling like they're not alone? I mean, or if they're in some remote country where they can't even get an education, they're again not sure of having a home to live under, a shelter to live in tonight, and a meal to have to sustain them for nutrition. How can they feel empowered? That's what I mean by complicated. It's,
You know,
we have a long-term solution, but we don't have a short-term solution to help that 15-year-old.
living in a society which is always looking for short-term solutions. And you have a person who is in his 50s and goes to medical checkup, and suddenly doctor says, wait a minute, we can't let you go. All your arteries are blocked. We have to operate open heart surgery. Now you conduct the open heart surgery and that case is finished. But other side is that you have seen a problem which has happened to this person. There are how many other people who are at younger age going to end up in the same position when they grow up 50? Why this person had this problem? You have to analyze where he's getting his information of what to eat, how to live, how to think. And unless we change the lifestyle of your human race, we are going to have, but our system or society thrives on operating people from open heart surgery because our medical industry is over $3 billion. They do not want to find the real cure. In Cleveland Clinic, who is the biggest, largest institution to do the open heart surgery, that they are the best in the nation. Also in Cleveland Clinic, there's a Dr. Esselstyn who understood and found that basically once you are in the complete vegetarian diet, you can avoid these heart attacks, cancers, all these other blood pressure, diabetes, all these problems. So Cleveland Clinic suddenly threatened and gave him 18 patients. Many of them were in hospices. And he changed their life and corrected them by changing their diet. Many of them are still alive. But has the Cleveland Clinic changed their method? No, because their money comes from operating on open heart surgeries.
Yeah.
That is what the problem is, my friend.
No, you're right. Let's take a quick break because we're way over time here. We'll come back and kind of wrap this up here today, going so many different directions, but ultimately trying to find some answers. And we'll see if we can find a couple before we wrap it up. This is Stress-Free Living. Stay with us. All right, folks. Again, a few seconds if you'd like to share a quick thought that I can ask Ratanjit before we wrap it up today. If not, we'll have much more time and just a few minutes to talk.
Here's Doug, and I think it is very complicated. I think that there's so many different things that can make people depressed. And it's really hard to hone in on any one thing. And I know I hear what Ratchet just says, but it's very complicated with different people. You know, growing up these days is way different than when we all grew up. And maybe after the show, when I have a little more time, I'd just give a couple of experiences that I've had with, I think, helping people from being depressed. And I almost lost it there, but anyway, so we'll talk after the show a little bit more.
Sure. Next time. We have a few seconds left if anybody else wants to add in.
I feel inspired thinking about the internal and external locus of control. And I feel more depressed when I feel like it's outside of my control. But if I can take responsibility for what I'm able to make a difference with, I think that's an opening. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
All right.
Yep. All right. We're coming back here. We'll wrap it up. I've got one more statistic to get your input on, Ratanjit, as soon as we come back here. We're not going to solve all of this today, but we opened up the door. This is Stress-Free Living. Ray Samich and Ratanjit Sandhi with you today, talking about antidepressants and in the bigger picture, all of the loneliness, all of the anxiety, all the depression that is surrounding us and being subscribed through antidepressants. But what is the cause and how is this happening? And why is it worse today than ever before? Ratanjit, we only have a few minutes left, but there's one statistic I didn't share with you earlier that I wanted to bring up now, and that is women are twice as likely to be on antidepressants as men. As a matter of fact, in all the statistics that I gave earlier in terms of the increases of prescriptions of these drugs, in many male categories, the numbers decreased during these periods. There's actually fewer men in some age groups that are on it today than there were 10 years ago, which means that overall, since the numbers are skyrocketing, women prescriptions are off the charts. I don't understand that because the maternal instinct of women is to help, is to give, is to mother. I mean, that is the essence of the female. Why are they twice as depressed? Why are they twice as anxious today?
You know, they're supposing there are two people. I'm not whether they're male or female. There are two people, and one has more information about what is happening, and one has very little information. So the person who has more information is more likely to get depressed. So more intelligence you have, the higher chance of depression. The female species generally are higher intelligent than the male species. They are more sensitive. They are more connected. They're able to see things which many of men cannot see. So naturally, they are going to be more affected. At the same time, they are more equipped with compassion. They are more capable of loving and caring and understanding. So once they are away from that path which they are designed for, they are going to be depressed. So basically, you had to get them back on the path they are designed for, which is loving, caring, and making a difference. So that's what the females are missing. And when they are this society, male-driven society, it's converting them into more assertive, to be more kind of becoming like men. They are going to be depressed, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I know too that people are waiting longer to get married, or they're, not getting married. There's fewer children being born. And I guess maybe all of those things that the maternal instincts gravitate for, they're not having an opportunity to do that. Like I said, being more formidable in the business world, maybe that's a good thing. But if that's causing some mental rearrangement in terms of what they really are prone to do and happiest doing. So there's so many more topics to go into on this. If we could just leave a thought, Ratanjit, and maybe you'll just go back to gratefulness. I'm not sure, but if we want to try to help people that we know in our life that maybe they are on this prescription, maybe we just see that they're very depressed or they're very lonely. What can we do for somebody? What would be a first step that you would recommend?
So to understand this life, a human being is born and eventually is born to die. We are all slowly age. Doesn't matter how much money we collect, how many trophies and medals we collect, and we die. And after death, any of you, if you are asked, do you know your great grandfather's name or great 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 grandfather's name, you will be hard pressed to understand or know. So most of the people uh, are not remembered. Doesn't matter how much money and how much fame and all that. So world is not going to remember you. So this life you live to enjoy, it's like going on a vacation. So if you are on a vacation, if you just sit in your room and don't see all the beauty or all the different things and enjoy this vacation, you are missing out. So we are on a vacation to this human life, and we need to, the enjoyment comes from making a difference and adding value. And we have to be grateful that we have been sent here. And eventually, all the problems are nothing but opportunities. And when you sell, control your mind and change your mind's thinking, instead of being sorry for the problem, be grateful for the problem because it is given to you a new uh, problem to solve. Once you solve that problem, there are going to be benefit which is going to be directly to you, or it is going to be to the human race. So understand all your difficulties, all our challenges are given to us to utilize our creativity and understanding and find a solution. Ray?
We'll let that be the last word here today. Thank you so much for your thoughts and our incredible discussion here today. Thanks to all of our guests that have joined us here on our Zoom call, and however you are listening or watching, we value you and we hope that we've added value to your life. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Now
Right, we are clear. Now it's time. Everyone can open up your microphone and share in your thoughts, observations, questions.
So let me take a shot at this one. I'm going to share a personal story, and would love to hear your thoughts on it. So, long story short, my mom's youngest sibling got married, and very shortly thereafter ended up in a divorce, and that just threw him off completely. And but
आईपैड का कैमरा
we
टेढ़ा
tried.
क्यों होता है सीधा क्यों नहीं आता इसका कैमरा इधर है
Okay,
sorry.
so we tried counseling. We tried, he was hospitalized and eventually was put on antidepressants. And he was in Chicago at the time, and I was in grad school in Chicago at the time. So I moved to Atlanta, and eventually in 2000, I moved him to Atlanta and supported him financially. And we are still supporting him financially. Long story short, I mean, he functions normally when he's on meds. There have been periods where he would stop taking meds and we could see the change in behavior. And, my mom actually lived with him to help him because, he's the youngest in the family. So he's gotten all the support from the family all these years, and of course, financially from us. But he has held jobs, no issues with that. But without meds, he falls apart. So I don't know. I mean, in this situation, despite all the counseling early on and all of that, still had to be put on meds. And as some of you were talking about, and Virji was saying that, you find a purpose, you do all of that. We tried everything and didn't work, other than putting him on meds. But I mean, I don't know how to, at this point, I think it's too late in the game for him, but how do you address, somebody who goes through a life-changing event that otherwise he was normal or she was normal and pushes them into this space? How do you get them out of it?
Once any of these events get embedded in your psyche, so what happens is, in absence of these medication, in some sense, they dumbify you. Your certain senses are lessened. And once you are not in the medications, you go back to remembering the same incident. So most of us have expectations from life. And when those expectations are not met, my goodness, we fall apart. One of the thing is that you have to take life as it comes. This understanding has to be given to you at the very, very early age. Accept life as it comes to you, rather than having the expectations. And once you manage the life which is handled to you, a best card player doesn't complain about the cards he or she is dealt with. They play the game with the cards they are dealt with. And that's why they are becoming the best. They are the best player. And so anytime you play the card with amateur players, they're constantly complaining about the cards they are dealt with. The difference, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, it makes you wonder whether uh, some people are not as, how would I say, maybe mentally strong to weather the storm, and some can weather storms very easily. So maybe I don't know if there is something we are inherently born with, or we develop as we grow, that mental toughness that makes somebody more, how should I say, resistant to falling into that kind of a situation of a depression and whatnot. Even though everybody has challenges, we have all faced challenges, but most people don't end up on meds and all that stuff, right? So I don't know if that's the case. I mean, if somebody is more predisposed to, to falling into that hole or situation.
The two very important tools to handle our life are never really given to us in our childhood. We tell them all these early mathematics and geography and science and all these things we teach, but we never teach them basic fundamentals of life, which is acceptance and gratefulness. And that is in the first standard, right from first standard to every class. When you begin the class in the classroom, first 10 minutes must be devoted to acceptance and gratefulness reinforcement. And as a consequence of that reinforcement, the human society would be totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one more comment that I'd like to add to it too, is that there are many people that do have mental health issues that do need medical care, whether it's prescriptions or therapy or whatever it is. I mean, there's certainly a set of the world that has these issues or has gone through such incredible challenges that these issues need to be faced and overcome. So we're not saying that every single person we're talking about here today is, should not be on medication or should not be helped. And we're not saying that every single person is capable of overcoming, at least I'm not saying that every single person can overcome that mental condition just because of being in a state of gratefulness. My reason for bringing this topic up is because of the incredible, overwhelming growth and 130% more prescribed females aged 12 to 17 within the last few years alone. Those are staggering statistics that caused me to bring the topic up. But I think there's always, I mean, just like there's a certain number of people that have a health condition, have a heart condition, or have cancer or diabetes or whatever, there's always going to be a certain group. But I just think the problem is evolving negatively at such a fast pace. And that's why we brought it up.
Yeah, and I think also it's easy for doctors to prescribe medicine, whether it's a teenager or a 12-year-old who is, very hyperactive, and say, oh, you know what, he has ADHD and whatnot, right? So we are, I mean, we are, and then a lot of it is driven by pharmaceutical industry trying to sell more pills.
Yeah.
I like to just respond to Sudeep in the same vein as you said, Ray, that there are acute conditions in which meds are appropriate. It's the penumbra of people who are overprescribed that we are talking about. And
Right.
and also if you take diabetes, you're given meds, but if you are going to eat sugar-coated donuts, then the medicines are not going to be effective. So you have to do both. But if I can just take a minute and try to see if the deeper, more fundamental point that Bhai Saab was making throughout this is that we exist in 5 dimensions, the XYZ dimensions of space, the fourth dimension of time, because we are aware that there was something called yesterday, something called now, and the future. But the fifth dimension is the spiritual dimension. And that is the frame of reference, just like the three space dimensions in time, that if we just never get inculcated with that idea, and Bhai Sahib, you called it variously as gratefulness, as acceptance, and so on. If you don't have that frame to understand your life, like a smart person gets a math problem wrong, he thinks, okay, I instead of diameter, I use radius, so I won't make that mistake again. But a poor student makes that mistake, then he thinks, oh, I'm a bad student anyway, I didn't get this right. So it's the frame of reference in which you kind of see your life as an overarching frame is, Bhai Sahib, what I believe you were talking about.
Yes, yes, yes. So until the basic understanding is changed, we are going to get the same results.
Right.
And now mental
I'm
sickness, which is much higher today than ever before in the human history. And half of it is overprescription, and other half is basically because we are depressed and we are anxious and we are those things, and they eventually play havoc with your thinking and with your mind and with their everything. And we call them mentally sick.
Ron has been very polite and he raised his hand, and he's been waiting for us to call upon him, like in school. So
Right.
go right ahead. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Ray, for doing an amazing show today. Thank you, Ratanjit ji, for having us on the call. I think you made 4 very beautiful points that I could absorb from the presentation today. First being self-love, which is if it's in deficiency, you're going to feel lonely, which is a very beautiful point that you brought about. You also mentioned about the best antidepressant, which is gratitude. In the gratitude mode, it's impossible to be depressed and stressed. So that was very well taken. You spoke about the mind as a servant, because that's where the major problem lies. It's mind that compound things, complicates the thing, and makes you defocused. Whereas if you are able to make it your servant and request the mind to find ways to add highest value, and it will definitely park you in the right direction. And the last point that you made was through the story that you mentioned about there will be negative experiences in life, and they can be really harsh upon you. But if you have the resources and the will, you can turn around that situation like this gentleman did when he went to the conflict areas and change the experience of the people for good. So having put these 4 points very beautifully in your presentation, I have 2 or 3 more questions that I'd like to learn from you. First is, how do we generate self-love? It's very well spoken that, self-love is important and things, but how do we generate? Sometimes we are not able to generate that self-love. How do we park ourselves in generating self-love? That's the first question that I'd like to learn from you. And I remember once in our conversation, you spoke about creative energy for the youth, especially. And you said that creative energy comes to you, it is part of you. It's not only about the few musicians and people who are blessed with certain therapies, but we all human beings have certain point in time where the highest flow of creative energy is there, but we do not know how to tap that creative energy. So if you can help us understand some therapies, like for depressed people, they say music happens to be a great therapy. Is there any other therapy for your soul? Is there any other methods that we can utilize to improve our daily life and not move in the direction of depressant, and be a source of light and life for others?
I call self-love as a self-worth. The self-love happens once. The true self-love happens once you fully decipher who you are. So when you think you are the human body, my name is this and my caste is this, I'm a male and I'm this and that, and you glorify that human body and be proud of it, and you call it self-love and self-esteem, that is going to fall apart, because that is another side of ego. Once you understand the real you resides in this housing of human body which is provided to you. So two things happen. You become utterly grateful for the housing, which is not you. And this housing becomes a temple because the divinity resides in it. So you do not disrespect this housing, the human body, but what you take care of the temple. And the secondly is what enlivens you, what is resides in this human body is you. And that is the divinity. So once you realize that, and then it starts the seed of the self-worth. So the worth of this divine power is endless. You can praise and you can do this, anything. You can be in love with this divine force, and this is all be without ego. And now when you talk about finding a creative energy in you, which is far beyond you, what happens is when you exhaust, ultimately our mission is doing or making all our best better. So if you are honest with yourself, to do your best, you have to exhaust everything you know. All your education, all your experience, all your skills. We have to exhaust to get your best. So when you have created best and you have exhausted all your skills, what else is there to make the best better? Then you have to tap the universal force within you, which has unlimited power and unlimited thinking. And that requires tremendous amount of desire to help, desire to make a difference. It does not come from elevating yourself. You will not be able to tap the divine force if your objective is to become better in the sense that you have higher trophies, higher model, or higher wealth, or higher recognition. It will only help, it is only come to you when you are in pain because you want to help somebody. You want to make a difference. And then only that an amazing creativity will come into you. I don't know whether I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely, you're on point. How to generate self-love is through self-worth, and there is the purpose to creativity unless you're not parked within you to add the highest value to others. The creativity not come in. Is there any therapy? Suppose you are going through a difficult phase of your life, and you are not able to comprehend this because I understand with the people around me also they may agree with me that with everything good around us also it is difficult to comprehend sometimes, which is not so complicated stuff, but then people who are going through a difficult time and do not have that self control, is there any therapy or anything that you would recommend as a starting point for them so that they start understanding there is something good about to happen to them?
Depends on your health and your conditions. And if you are depressed and conditions, but health is still good. So you can utilize your capability of making a difference to others. And this exercise will give you it generates energy which is going to overpower your negativity which exists in your life. And secondly, that you have to somehow park yourself from the condition you are in into gratefulness. And now one is asking, how can I be grateful when nothing is right for me? Ultimately, the gratefulness comes from the knowing that this human body still has the divine power which exists in it. You do not have a contract or a license. Anytime this human power can exit out, and your human body is basically a dead meat. So when you breathe, means every breath indicates that you are alive, that divine power is still present in you. So you inculcate this habit of every breath gives you the feeling of gratefulness, because ultimately we live our habits, not our knowledge. Once you cultivate this habit, initially it's going to take difficult time in cultivating this habit. But we have this organ in our brain, which is called basal ganglia. Basically, it notices something which you repeat consecutively, and it picks up and makes it into a habit. Habit does not use your creative energies. Habit happens without thinking. So once you cultivate it, when you do these things, this process of being grateful with every breath for a whole month in a meditation, which is a therapy, you are going to suddenly start feeling thankful. And when you feel thankful, suddenly you begin to repair your human body. You begin to provide energies. You begin your creative mind to be highly active and more efficient. So suddenly the total capacity of this human body and the mind are available to you when you are in the gratefulness mode.
Can I have a follow-up question, sir?
Sure.
Where I'm headed is a set of people who have not got their due credit or importance or bonding from their family members. And suddenly when they age and they have some illness that they built, now there's a very common practice that I've seen that, that is the only time they get some empathy, some compassion from their family members. And as a result, they enjoy being ill. They talk about their illness all the time. And that also is some case for depression, I would feel. How do you handle this situation? Suppose you're on the other side of it. Should you encourage their illness? Should you provide that empathy to them? How should you position yourself?
Again, in the human body mode, you are craving for attention. So if you remain in the human body mode, you think I'm in this human body. Human body fundamentally knows it is going to die. It is parked in fear. It is going to starve. It is parked in collecting food and things. It is parked in greed. And it thinks it's a separate entity. It is parked in claiming being better than others. So sparked in ego. So those things are going to be there, and you will go to any extent to get attention. And that is why people enjoy being sick or telling only the bad news so that they get sympathy.
Correct.
And so it's basically a confirmation that you are in the human body mode. So again, this is a habit of either staying in the human body mode or staying in the oneness mode, or in the thinking that you are the spiritual being within you. And you, in that sense, the same universal power that is within me, which is enlivening me, is enlivening everyone else. It is a single power, which makes us all one. So now my real incentive is to serve that power. So once you are in the spiritual mode, then you are not looking for accolades or trophies or medals or praises. You are looking to make a difference. You are serving the divine force present in others. Again, you develop this habit, constantly thinking yourself in this oneness mode. It is not the knowledge. We all know, we have heard this many times, but we are not going to practice until it becomes a habit.
Thank
Ray,
you so much, Ratanjit, for that effort. Thank you.
Ray.
Yes. Yes, doctor.
So, in following up to the last question, which is something I've been thinking about this entire time, and I'm not sure our friend answered it. So, if we can get ourselves in that oneness mode, and we understand that, but the people we're around, maybe a spouse, maybe a child that we're close to, isn't in that oneness mode and may not be able to get to that oneness mode, and they're concerned with their physical being, or there's something, if you sense philosophical, and you're with that person all the time, again, spouse, family, friends, coworkers, is there a way to help them see other mode that they're struggling with and you're struggling with, living with that or being with that person who can't seem to get past that? Is there anything we can do to influence their behavior, to show them this other side?
Steve, in all my workshops and all my lectures and all my presentation, after all this is done, people always say, how can I change others? Nobody says that, and they basically say, I understand this. I totally get it. But how do we change others? By understanding and getting, you will not practice this until it becomes a habit. So once it becomes a habit, and then only you can change others. So first step is not to change others. First step is to change yourself and developing this habit of living in oneness and thinking in oneness. And once that habit becomes, and you become grateful and practice this, then you can change others.
Ratanjit talks a lot about mirror neurons, and I've used so many examples with friends, especially because I'm around a lot of young people that have young children, and I remind them constantly that the children, are my grandchildren or whoever it is that I'm around, are copying what they see in their parents. And so it's almost contradictory, because we always think, it's, as a parent, it's so important that we say the right words, or we even have the right tone. in terms of telling kids stuff. And it's been proven, and we talk about it a lot on this show, it's what they see, it's not what we tell them or how they hear it. It's what we do that they copy. And we always think about that for kids, but I don't know if we ever really outgrow that. I think we watch people our whole lives, and we see how they react to challenges, and we watch how they go through disappointments, and how they, if they do get ticked off quickly, or if they're able to hold back and be calm, a calming influence amidst a stressful situation. I think that really is part of what we do. And then if we like what we see, then we try to make that our own habit and build that into our lifestyle. Like, I want to be more like her or more like him. So I think what Ratanjit is saying is true. We immediately think about other people that have these problems and how we want to try to fix them. And instead we kind of have to fix ourselves first, and just let them see that change in us. And then if we do come back at some point with the right words, and we do say, this is what we think, we can do it from a perspective of, we've noticed this change in us, and I notice how happy I am with this, and how much more at peace I am with this habit that I've tried to adopt. And maybe you want to think about it too. And from that perspective, the combination of seeing it in us and us sharing the joy of having that new habit, maybe that's the way to make the impact.
Yeah, it's like when you are on drugs, addicted to drugs. We all know that this is not good for me. I want to leave it, but I can't, because I have developed that into a habit. So I have to go to a rehab to break that habit. So similarly, we have a habit of living in the human body mode. So you have to go almost into a rehab to break that habit and start living in the oneness mode.
Anybody else have a thought today? We want to thank the few of you that have held on. We've lost. We had a nice big crowd. We've lost many of you through our post show, but we're appreciative you've stayed with us. Thank you. I guess we're done. We are back next Saturday, same time, same station. Please join us again. Bring some friends.
Anyone has a topic in mind?
Actually, I picked up a couple here from our conversation. I like the self-love, self-worth. I think we should talk about that in depth.
I was just thinking about that. My capstone for my master's degree was moving from self-sacrifice to self-care. Self-sacrifice to self-care. And it's amazing how we can love others when we truly love ourselves.
Yeah.
So nice to be with you all. Thank you so much. It's always.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks for being here. I love your new pic. I love your new picture, by the way. It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. See you next time.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Well, thank you. Thank you.